Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Maria Luisa Garnica, and I am the Education USA Advisor in Guatemala City, here in Central America. It is so fun and so exciting to have you with us today, and I'm really happy and privileged to share with you a little bit of the categories and insights that you may want to consider when choosing your options, okay? So we have about 30 minutes to cover a lot of content. So please feel free to write your questions in the Q&A section here on the session. My colleague Elvira is going to help us out in answering as many questions as possible. But don't forget, you can always reach out to Education USA, to your Education USA Center, and get a little bit more personalized help, all right? So let's get started. Some of the things that we are going to cover today are going to be just a few of the categories that you should consider, such as size of the institution, your profile in academics and extracurricular, and so on. And then a little bit about how are you going to do this, right? How are you going to navigate all of this? And I want you to start thinking, if you can, just play with me for a moment. Think about a number. How many universities and colleges do you think there are in the US? Do you think there's a couple hundred? Do you think maybe there's 50? Or how many do you think there are? Just take 5 seconds and think a number. Get a number in your head. And I'm here to tell you, yes, that there are 4,700 universities and colleges in the US. And I want you to realize that the US is a very large and vast country that has a lot of diversity and that offers really good quality education. When you think about the population, right, there's a lot of people and therefore there's a lot of demand, right? And so there has to be a lot of good offer for the high education that the US provides. You're gonna get diversity in curriculum and in the student body, and you're going to get also a lot of flexibility when it comes to tailoring the route that you want to choose and that you want to navigate when it comes to your professional development. So then you also have to realize that the US is one of the top destinations for academics worldwide. So you're also going to experience a lot of cultural exchange, and that value is really important. All right, so 4,700, it's a lot, but you want to think about it as exciting possibilities. You want to think, okay, well, I have a lot to choose from, okay? So what I'm proposing to you today is to find the questions that you can ask yourself to find what fits best for you. Okay, what does that mean? Think about it when you're choosing what to wear. Maybe it's a piece of clothing, maybe it's a pair of shoes. There are certain items that fit you best, and that's kind of the idea with having so many options to choose from. What fits you best? What is going to meet your desires, your requirements, your expectations, academically, financially, for your future, etc. So there are 5 categories that I want us to explore, okay? We're going to look a little bit into the institution type. What does this mean? What different types of institutions are there? We're going to talk about the region, right? Remember, the US is a big country and each state has its different culture. So we're going to look at a few different details and ideas to take into consideration. We're going to talk about the setting. Where is that campus situated? We're going to look into the academics. How do you match the academics of that university? And we're going to talk about finances. So just 5 proposed categories for you to explore and find that best fit. Keep that idea in mind, okay? So thinking about the institution type, all right? We can often hear the word university and the word college used interchangeably, and that's all right. This is just a brief overview for you to have a little bit more clarity in regards to the different types of institutions. Again, remember, there's 4,700. So there's diversity in that sense too. So the main difference between public and private is the funding, the money. Where is that money coming from? When you have state universities, which are public institutions, they have money that comes from that state. And for example, that means that citizens from that state will get in-state tuition. What does that mean? The cost of that institution is going to be lower for citizens from that state. Whereas if you're an international student or a student from outside that state, it's going to cost more for you to attend that state institution. When you look at private universities, the origin of the money, let's say, comes from private sources. So it tends to cost the same for everyone, no matter if you're from that state or if you are from outside that state, all right? And then college versus universities. Two main differences in regards to college, right? When you hear the word college, you want to make sure if you're hearing the word college in the context of community college, right? Because this means it's a 2-year institution in which you can either get a associate's degree, right? Or where you can meet requirements to then transfer to a 4-year degree. Community colleges oftentimes are 2-year institutions, okay? And then we got the term liberal arts colleges, which are oftentimes institutions that are smaller in size regarding student population and that focus on the diversity of your curriculum, in pushing you to explore different paths in your academic career. This term, liberal arts, it's a very interesting and valuable concept that in a way most institutions of higher education in the US incorporate in their teaching, because they want you to be a worldly and knowledgeable student that is going to be successful later in your future. Then you want to look into student population. How many students are in that institution? How many students would you like to have as colleagues while you're a student? Do you want a large institution or do you want a smaller institution? Okay, so for looking at your undergraduate experience, that's going to be very valuable because it's going to be 4 years of your life that you're going to be in like a microcosm, right? An ecosystem, if you may, of a university. And then you want to think also about the selectivity. How does your profile match the selectivity of that school? Okay, and then you are free to explore other elements within the institution type. So do you practice a religion? And do you want to continue practicing? There are all sorts of universities that practice and belong to different religions, and that can be a thing that you could get in the US. Or would you like an all-female or all-male campus? That is also available to you. Right? So then when we think about the region, remember, one time I was talking to an American colleague and they shared with me that when you think about the size of the territory, right? It's such a large country, the US is, that when you think about just a state, it's almost sometimes larger than a country itself, you know? And so each state has its own culture. Each state has its own traditions, but they're all together, right? They're all the same country. So it's a very valuable and interesting experience to study in the US. Here here are 4 main regions for you to consider. We got the West, the Midwest, the Northeast, and the South. And in the West, which is, you know, the largest chunk of land in the US, you get states such as Washington State, Wyoming, California, that have generally milder weathers, okay? So let's talk a little bit about that. What does that mean? That you may not get lots of snow and really, really hot summers and autumn seasons. You're going to hopefully get milder weather. And that may be beneficial or interesting to you because maybe you have a health condition that requires that. So that's an important element to consider. When you look at the Midwest, this is north of the country and it's closer to Canada, yeah? And in this region of the country, you get strong winters, strong falls, strong summers, and strong spring, for example. So the weather is very different. in that sense. And it's similar to the Northeast, which also has very marked seasons. And in the Midwest, you get states such as Michigan, Ohio, Minnesota, and in the Northeast, you get states such as Vermont, Maine, Connecticut, okay? And then when we move a little bit south, you get that region, which is hotter, right? It's closer to Central America, to the south, and therefore it's hotter, okay? You get states such as Mississippi, Florida, and Texas. And like I said, I want to emphasize the idea of the cultures of each state. That's important because you want to realize and you want to explore, how does that fit, okay? How does that fit with you? What are some of those elements, traditions, and different nuances that these states have that can match with you, that interest you, that call your attention? And it doesn't mean that you have to focus only in one region. It means that you can explore and see, okay, I like different regions, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't apply to different schools in opposite sides of the country. It just means that you have to be informed so that when you get admitted to many schools, hopefully, you can make a choice that is going to be tough because you would have loved all of those schools that admitted you, okay? So talking about the setting, it goes hand in hand with the region in a way, but the setting, you want to focus it a little bit closer to the campus. So what do I mean by this? Let's think about three main settings. We're going to have the urban setting, suburban, and the rural setting. What does this mean? Normally an urban setting is within a city, right? There's a lot of buildings and public transport that's accessible, and normally it tends to cost more, okay? So when you think about this, you want to realize that the cost of either the tuition or the living costs of you attending that school are probably going to be a little bit higher. And then you get the suburban setting, which tends to be a little bit more accessible in living costs and further from bigger cities, but still manageable to reach those cities. And then you get the rural areas where you're going to get a lot of land and space around you, okay? So what does this mean? It's probably going to be lower living costs. Why do you need to think about the setting? Again, you want to research and make the best and the most informed decision in regards to what fits you best. And here's when you want to think about what kind of activities do you want to be able to do around you. Do you like going camping? Or do you like just to have a lot of space around you? Or do you want to go to a lot of museums? Or the other day, a student was talking to me about the importance of having direct flights from Guatemala to the US. And so that is all a possibility if you consider it and make that exploration beforehand, right? When you are researching your options. That is very important. And then we're going to look into the academics, okay? Academics. So what are some of your plans for the future? What are you looking into exploring in the future? Do you have any plans? And like I say over there in the slide, it's okay if you don't. It really is okay. This is just a question for you to play with. Think about it. What is your student profile? What are some of the experiences that you've had? What are your academic strong suits? What are the things you most like from school, right? Because you're looking at undergraduate careers, that is a lot of time, and that can set the course for your future later on as a professional. But again, don't get too scared if you feel like you don't have it all sorted out. Believe me, that happens, and it's going to happen later on in your life as well. This is just to get a general idea, because if you get a general idea, you might be able to take the next step and then the next step. So think about it in the short term. The short term is going to allow you to make some choices, okay, that are going to then build up to your long-term plans. So in the sense of the short term, what would you like to experience in the classroom? Do you want to be able to do research as an undergraduate student? Okay, that's a possibility, but you have to have that activated as a filter in your research process for undergraduate higher education institutions in the US. Or do you want to have a small ratio between professors and students so that you develop a personalized relationship with your professors? Or do you thrive and like better when there are a lot of students in your classrooms? Maybe you don't know the specific answers to all of this, but there are all valid questions for you to ask yourself. Ask yourself, ask your teachers, ask your guidance counselors, ask your family, right? Talk it out with your friends. Think about it, brainstorm it. This is the moment when you should enjoy, because all of the possibilities are open to you. How fun is that? And then when you look about the long-term goals, again, don't worry. It's cool if you have it already set, but also be flexible. Because sometimes when you open your perspective, you consider other things that you hadn't considered before. And that can enrich your path, your academic and professional path. So draw it out, make a draft of what that long-term looks like, and be mindful and flexible that it may change, and it may change even for the better, okay? And then the finances. We have to realize that the main source of funding for your undergraduate career in the US is going to be your personal funds and occasional potential scholarships that you may be able to obtain. Why do I want to start with personal funds? You have to realize this is an investment, and you have to realize that it's going to be beneficial for you in the moment and in the future. So talk about it honestly with your parents, with your caregivers, and think about how much are you able and willing to invest in your higher education in the US. What does this mean? Evaluate how much does it cost for you to currently exist, right? How much does it cost for you to go to school, to eat, to use the services, you know, internet and whatnot. All of those things in a way would have to continue to be covered while you are in your own country. But if you go to the US, those funds, that investment in your education, in your current location, could be refocused, right? Redirected to your US development and education. So be honest, be pragmatic, and keep your feet on the ground so that the research that you do when you're exploring your options, that best fit that you explore and that you consider, will also fit you best in this regard. And when looking at potential scholarships, 3 main points that you want to consider is that there are different types, right? There's merit-based, there's financial need types of scholarship, and then there's specific scholarships on talents, right? The merit-based, oftentimes you get them if you have certain achievements academically, or if you reached a certain score in a standardized test, or if you met just the GPA that they required, right? That's great. But if you're not a strong academic student, that's okay, right? You want to polish that element, of course, but it's okay because there are other things that are valued in the selection and application process to US colleges and universities at the undergraduate level. Then you got financial needs scholarships that look at the economic hardship that you may be facing, and the other types such as sports and skills scholarships. All of these, of course, are highly selective. And so I encourage you to, again, have this idea clear. Keep your feet on the ground. So be realistic, but dream big. That's valid. But just stay pragmatic and keep your feet on the ground. And like I said at the beginning, I invite you to reach out to your Education USA advising centers. And I'll share later on as well the link where you can find your center in case you don't know or haven't been in contact with them yet. Okay, so now you may be wondering, okay, cool, all of those things now, but how am I going to do that? How am I going to navigate all of this? And so 2 first steps that you should take. Reach out to Education USA, right? Here is the link. And I believe my colleague Elvira also shared it in the chat. You can also, if you are joining us from a computer, you can scan that QR code with your phone and it'll open the site. If this website is, you can't access it for some reason, please reach out to us through social media. Like, you know, we've all moved towards virtual programming and working. And so we'll be happy to answer your questions and help you out through our social media as well. And then there is the Define Your Priorities questionnaire, which is a very valuable resource that Education USA has developed that has a lot of these categories and questions that we've talked about. So I encourage you to, again, copy that link, take a picture of this, or scan that QR code and go to that questionnaire. Check it out, look at it, explore it, tell a friend about it and answer it together, bounce off ideas off of each other, have fun with it. Like I said, this is really exciting for you to start considering all of those options. And then a couple other search engines that I wanted to share with you are over here. Again, same premise. You can copy the links. My colleague Elvira is sharing them in the chat box. You can scan the QR codes however you want. These are just a sample of search engines that you can use, in which you can activate different filters and explore different elements within your search. Today, because of time, because we have a little bit of time left, I want to explore one of them, which is going to be the Big Future search engine. So again, QR code, you can scan it however you want. You go to bigfuture.collegeboard.org and you can search for colleges and universities. This is what it's going to look like. You click over here at the search for colleges, and then there's going to be another window that looks like this, okay? Over here, if you can see, there are different categories, right? There are test scores and selectivity, the location, the campus and housing, the sports and activities that are available to you as a student, etc. For today, I want to focus on the campus and housing slider, right? And here I circled that it's a continuum, right? It doesn't have to be black or white. You may be in the, for sure, I need this element in the university or college that I consider for my undergraduate career, or you may be more in the middle. Maybe it's not absolutely necessary, and that's okay too. You can play around with this, and then you will get different options. My suggestion, my advice would be to, after you got that, all of those, it's still going to be a lot of options, right? Just sample them out. Go explore their websites. Go explore their social media. That is very important because you want to get the feel of what that school feels like. What is their personality? Don't be afraid to interact with them on social media. That is such a good reference point nowadays to get a sense of the flavor of that school. Okay, so don't be afraid to follow them in their social media, but like things like Reddit and other kinds of platforms can also give you different reference points of what that institution is going to be like for you, and if that's the best fit for you. Okay, and then lastly, we're wrapping up and we're going to have a couple minutes for live questions. So remember, right? Reach out to your Education USA Center. We'll be happy to help you out. Explore your options and explore what you want. What is the best fit for you? And don't be afraid to ask for questions, ask for help or input, right? What is your opinion? What do you think? What would you like? And that always come back to you, right? What would you like? What would be good for you? What would be the best contribution? So dream big, but stay grounded, so that the effort that you put into your application process, all of that time and questions and drafts that you put in, pay the benefits, right? So that the effort that you put in is going to give you that experience that is going to be memorable and excellent for your future. So now we have about 5 minutes for a couple questions, and Elvira is going to help us out.
Great, Maria Elisa. Can you hear me? Yes, right. Okay, so we have so many questions about scholarships. So what would be your recommendation for students in different countries to start looking for scholarships?
Okay, thank you. So like I said, you have to realize that everybody wants them. Just like you want them, everybody wants them. So you have to be honest with your profile and realize and be pragmatic about it. What are some of the elements in your profile that could get you a scholarship? And what does that mean? Are you very strong in the academic department? Cool, but what else do you bring to the table? It's not only about being a good student. There's a lot of people who are good students. There's a lot of people that got great SAT scores. What distinguishes you? What are some of the community involvement that you have? What are some of those extracurricular activities that represent your personality and the choices that you make with your free time? All right? So be realistic about it. And also on the other side of it, be pragmatic and realize that you may think there's nothing to invest in your education, but that also represents your effort, right? Talk about it with your family. How much would it cost for you to continue studying or for you to study currently where you're at right now? How do you cover that money? And have that realistic, honest conversation to maybe make a plan to cover maybe your living expenses. And the third element that I would say is prepare. If you're aiming for a scholarship, no matter what type it is, you have to be prepared. What does that mean? Look it up, research. What are some of their requirements? Is it academic? Is it having a certain score in a standardized test? Or is it having a series of extracurricular activities? And be honest about it. Do I match that? How do I match it? Can I meet those requirements if I get myself to work on that right now? And then make your plan. Create your game plan to have success in your process. But again, stay grounded and again, reach out to us. We can help you out in staying grounded and dreaming big, but keep that in mind, right? Stay grounded, be realistic, and also dream big so that the effort pays off.
And another topic that is also in a lot of questions here is about starting the search for the programs. We have questions about engineering, business, law, how they start looking for a program that is a right fit for a student.
Okay, cool, thank you. So remember in those search engines that I shared with you, you will be able, I invite you to play with them, copy those links and play with them because you can select different filters. Yes, it can be a filter about how many students you want, or it can be a filter on the career that you want to explore, so that the options that show up are good for you and are what it's applicable to what you're searching. Again, there are, I repeat, like I said in the beginning, the US has 4,700 institutions and they offer a wide diversity and flexibility of academic options. So don't be afraid that there will be an institution that offers the course and the path that you want. And those search engines, like we shared here, can help you out in filtering those out.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. We have a couple of students asking if they can transfer from their countries, to start their undergraduate degree in their countries, and then transfer to a US university and get a bachelor's degree.
Yes, there are lots of transfer students that choose to transfer to the US. My advice, because that's a very specific question depending on the track that you're on, is to reach out to your Education USA Advising Center. You can again scan this QR code, which is going to take you to the Find Your Advising Center tab at the educationusa.ca.gov site, and then reach out to them. We'd be happy to help you out in exploring what are some of the options if you already have a couple of US higher education institutions spotted, and how to go about that.
Okay, I think we have no more time to answer other questions, but I just share again the link to Find Your Advising Center in case you didn't get an answer to your question. You can always contact your advising center so you have personal answers to your questions.
Yes, thanks so much for joining and enjoy this fair. And don't be afraid to reach out and explore all of the amazing content that Education USA has brought to you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.